social acceptance of cosmetic plastic surgery. Without further ado, the House welcomes the first affirmative, Kowa Niikura, to open the case on the family side.
Ladies and gentlemen, the proposition is here to tell you that the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. We shouldn't have to conform to a single standardized version of beauty by changing ourselves. Beauty should change its definition to conform to each and every individual, and that's why we stand on the proposition. We're going to set this as a value judgment debate. We're not going to be banning cosmetic surgery in the concept of this debate. We're just going to talk about whether being able to change your facial features or your physical features to conform to a standardized concept of beauty is good or bad for the society and for the concept of beauty in and of itself. And to this extent, we're going to talk to you about three issues. We're firstly going to talk to you about what's happening to the concept of beauty in our society right now, how beauty has changed and why we prefer that. Secondly, I'm going to talk to you about why the beauty that we are starting to see exist right now is a far better alternative than the beauty that cosmetic surgery propagates, which is the idea that you can change yourself to become a standardized version of the word beautiful. Thirdly, I'm going to talk about why uniquely cosmetic surgery is extremely harmful towards our society. So moving on to the first point. Ladies and gentlemen, what the hell is beauty to begin with, right? Beauty has a unique role inside our society. Some people are more desirable than others. Some people are more attractive than others. We think that this lends itself to certain social privileges in the current situation. We're talking about how people are more likely to be biased towards things or people which are beautiful, right? So you're more likely to be hired, statistically proven, if you are beautiful, if you look beautiful on the photograph of your CV. You are more likely to be forgiven for your mistakes because you are beautiful. You are more likely to be confident because people are more likely to listen to your opinions. Therefore, people who are beautiful tend to be more confident than the people who are ugly. We think that this kind of social privileges, which are intangible but do actually exist, is the kind of social values that beauty sconces on those who happen to be beautiful at the time. But we think that there's a problem with that because this is only accessible to the people who are born beautiful in the current situation, and we think that there's a problem with that. But let's look at how society is starting to tackle the standardized concept of beauty in our status quo. We're looking, ladies and gentlemen, at a world where beauty is starting to be diversified. For example, Calvin Klein introducing plus-size models inside their lineup for clothes. We're looking at people who are more likely to try diverse forms of makeup in order to try and make themselves look different, in order to try and get them to enhance their facial features. We're looking at people who are saying, hey, okay, maybe it's not just big tits that make a woman more womanly. Maybe small breasts are also good, right? We're starting to see a diverse concept. We're starting to see a counter-movement towards the concept of beauty as a whole, right? We're starting to see beauty diversify. We're starting to recognize that individuals view beauty in a different way, and we're starting to accept other forms of beauty, however, whatever it may look like. Why do we think that this is a more preferable version to what cosmetic surgery does for you in the current situation? We think on our side of the house, it's better than the alternative, which is basically like to standardize it and then make it more accessible. We think the idea to diversify beauty is a lot more better. Why? Because firstly, it's definitely more inclusive and more accessible if you get beauty to conform to yourself rather than you conforming to beauty and the other way around, right? People, for example, who are already beautiful don't need to take plastic surgery, but people who are ugly right now do have to take plastic surgery and they have to go that extra step. We think that it's a lot easier for these people to say that they are beautiful when they are already ugly per se, but then people start to regard them as beautiful. We think that that's a more inclusive idea. Secondly, we nullify the privilege that is associated to one standard version of beauty that exists right now, right? Because we give that privilege to everybody, or rather we don't give anybody any privileges at all, because beauty becomes diversified as a result of taking this, as a result of that. We think on our side of the house that the phrase everybody is beautiful is inherently better than saying everybody can be beautiful if you take steps 1, 2, and 3, ladies and gentlemen. And that's the kind of beauty that we want to propagate on our side of the house. And the latter version about how everybody can be beautiful, that's what they have to defend on their side of the house. Number 3, lastly, why do we think cosmetic surgery is inherently harmful towards the people, towards society when it comes to propagating that version of beauty, right? We say on our side of the house that cosmetic surgery is uniquely harmful in a couple of ways. Firstly, cosmetic surgery gives you an easy way out, right? It's easier to change your nose to make it look like the desirable shape than to say, look, my nose is beautiful just the way it is, I don't want to change it. It's an easier way out for people. And we don't, we're not prohibiting individuals from taking that way out if they so want to in the context of this debate, ladies and gentlemen. We're just saying that that's a bad choice overall once you look at it in the collective. Why is that? Because the moment you give in, you become a part of the problem. You become a part of the problem that says, this is the kind of beauty that we want in our society, and this is something that is more desirable than the other forms of beauty that may or may not exist, or the other forms of beauty that may or may not change, the definitions of beauty that may or may not change, as a result of you not taking cosmetic surgery, ladies and gentlemen. And we think that that's actually extremely problematic. Why? Because you enforce the standardized beauty of the standardized beauty that is accepted as beautiful right now if you take the easy way out. Because you're saying, okay, you are ugly right now, and therefore that's why you need to change, and you need to change to this kind of criteria in order to be classified as beautiful, in order to become privileged. That's why if you look at beauty contests in Korea, anybody who's seen Miss Korea compositions, you realize that they all look the same. They all have tall noses, they all look very white, and they all have double-lidded eyes, and they have really tall, like, and so forth, right? It's something out of the Clone Wars. It's like Star Wars, right? Everybody looks the same. And that's the problem that we have on the side proposition. Why is that? Because it implies that some people are ugly to begin with. It implies that some people are undesirable to begin with, and they have to change in order to become more valued in our society. We don't like that on our side of the house. We think that that's a terrible idea. We think that people should be valued for how they look and why they look that way, regardless of, any kind of hierarchy inside our society, and cosmetic surgery uniquely creates that hierarchy. Notice, Mr. Speaker, how there is nobody in our society who has really big breasts but say, I want to take cosmetic surgery to reduce the size of my breasts. It's always in one direction, right? Nobody says, I want to flatten my nose a bit. Everybody says, I want to make my nose taller. So cosmetic surgery inherently is not a tool for diversification. It is a tool for conformity. It is a tool for standardization of beauty. And why is that problematic? Because if you do that, you end up propagating that norm. You also end up cementing the concept of beauty in itself. And you also end up pressurizing people. Precisely because cosmetic surgery is an easy way out now, people are going to pressurize you to take cosmetic surgery even if you want to believe or subscribe to other concepts of beauty. Because nobody will let you do that now that you have an easy way to access a standardized version of beauty. Ladies and gentlemen, what has proposition told you in today's debate? We've told you firstly that this is the value judgment debate about how we should view beauty in our society. What should beauty be defined as inside our society, and why? And secondly, we told you that the beauty that's starting to occur right now, the idea of diversification of beauty to fit the individual rather than the conformist version of beauty, which is the plastic surgery that they want to talk about, is far more desirable because it's more inclusive and it doesn't rule out anybody as undesirable to begin with. Ladies and gentlemen, you're all extremely beautiful. Don't let anybody tell you differently.
Thank you for your remark. And the House welcomes the first negative, Sayaka Nakano, to open the case on the negative side.
So let's get something very clear. No matter what kind of beauty norms there are in society, no matter what kind of beauty there is in the eyes of the beholder, when I look in the mirror, I am always going to see something that I do not like. No matter what beauty norms there are, there's always going to be something that makes me unhappy. And to the extent it makes you massively unhappy, to the extent it actually lessens your quality of life, to the extent that it actually bothers your own happiness, we think it's a very legitimate choice for you to take these kinds of plastic surgery to empower yourself, to make yourself feel happy in no matter what society you're in, no matter what form of beauty there is in a society. And for those reasons, we're very happy to stand on opposition side. So we're going to talk to you about two main things here, Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition today. First of all, why plastic surgery is a valid and empowering choice. Now, furthermore, it's going to actually why these people do not have to pay the price for the societal norms through these harms. But secondly, we're going to talk about what happens when society does not accept this decision of plastic surgery and why this is so harmful. Before that, rebuttal to Kowa's speech. First of all, for Kowa's world to be true, gradually, all forms of beauty and every single person here will have to be beautiful, right? But that's never going to happen in any way, right? Because first of all, he never shows you why every single form of beauty is ever going to be beautiful. But furthermore, we don't understand how, if there are certain aspects of people that you're going to point out as beautiful, that means that there's always going to be something that's not beautiful, right? Meaning the fact that there's always going to be something that you can have plastic surgery in and improve yourself, and we think that there's always going to be a valid choice, right? But secondly, what he seemed to say is that what we don't understand coming from Kowa's speech is why there always must be one form of plastic surgery, right? Because if you're going to say that there's a standardized form of beauty, there's only to be one, and beauty is generally diversifying in some way. We don't understand why plastic surgery will also not be diversified as well, right? Because if, for example, the double eyelid is currently beautiful, but the single eyelid will also be beautiful, we think that both surgeries will exist then, right? Because beauty is for that plastic surgery. That does not make any sense. But furthermore, we never understand why that mechanism of plastic surgery cannot be happen, and why you can't achieve the beauty that you think is unique to you and is best for you, right? But lastly, a clear contradiction from Kowa's speech already, right? What he said today is the fact that right now there's so much change occurring, so much beauty is changing, yet the last 2 minutes of his speech was dedicated to the fact of how plastic surgery has never changed, how people have always wanted big boobs, how people have always wanted the same thing out of plastic surgery, because the same form of standardized beauty has always remained, right? We think that in that way, you can't say from your side today that there can be both a standardized beauty but also a diversified beauty, right? You need to choose one, and that is a clear failure coming from Kowa's speech, right? Let's go on to plastic surgery as a valid and empowering speech. Let's get something very clear here. The way you look is arbitrary, but it's massively connected with how you are perceived and how you are treated as a person, right? People, when we think, coming from opposition, that people who feel disempowered, people who are not happy with the way they look, should be free to choose to look the way they like and feel empowered through that, right? But furthermore, we think we're going to give you this philosophical argument coming from opposition that the extent to which it makes you better, that reason is not relevant about whether or not it should make you happy or not, right? What do we mean by that? We think that the reason for a choice is not relevant to whether or not that choice is a good thing or not, right? We're going to give you an analogy here. Even if, for example, you give a good excuse for wanting to do drugs, does not mean that drug usage is a bad thing, right? In that same way, we think that plastic surgery can be used for this. Just because, for example, you are coerced into it, just because people around you say that you are not beautiful, does not make that choice for you to want to be beautiful invalid, but furthermore, that use of plastic surgery invalid as well, right? In that same way, we think that to the extent that we have proven to you that this will empower people, but furthermore, the reason that it empowers people does not actually change it in any way, we think that we have shown to you that it can be encouraged, that it should not be something that should be regretted in any way, right? And we think that the question that needs to be asked here is, should you be free to make that choice, not whether or not that desired cause for that choice is legitimate or not. And we think that to the extent that we have shown you that this empowers people, that this helps people cope with things in life and helps them become the best person that they are, we think that this is a legitimate choice, and we think that it should be supported, right? But furthermore, we think the very, very large harm coming from proposition side today is that yes, this norm is not a good norm. We admit it. Yes, it can be a harmful norm, right? But society has no right to use these people who took this plastic surgery as a way or a tool to change this norm in any way. Now, why is that? It's because these people who actually committed or used plastic surgery didn't make the norm. They are the victims of the norm, right? We think that because they are the victims of the norm, what that means is that they therefore should be free to escape that norm. They have no duty to change that norm, or furthermore to be a tool to be used to subjectify to change that norm in any way, right? We think that what you're going to do by this is just use these people as tools to go use to get to the society that you want to achieve, and we don't think that that is a good thing. But furthermore, what happens when society does not accept these decisions? We're talking to you about two levels, right? First of all, people who haven't added. Okay, there are some people here who really want to have plastic surgery, who think that by having this kind of plastic surgery, they will feel better about themselves, they will look better, and they will lead a better life, right? And we don't think that that is a bad thing for them to take that choice, for them to not be hesitant about that choice, right? We don't think that it's a bad, we think what will happen by taking this proposition is that you will be more hesitant to go into this thing. And we think that it's going to be extremely harmful. Why is that? It's because as a society, we don't have the right for you to feel bad about, to make you feel bad about your choices that you take. As a society, we cannot go up to you as a pregnant woman who's thinking about having an abortion and wave the picture of your fetus in your hand, in your face to make you feel bad, right? In that same way, we can't make you feel bad about something that will clearly make you happy, and we think that by taking this proposition, that is exactly what you're going to do. But secondly, people who have already taken that plastic surgery, right? What's going to happen is that these people are going to be discriminated against. They're going to be made fun of, and they're going to feel even more sad. Now, why is that so harmful? Let's get something very clear. When you get plastic surgery, just because that thing is fixed does not mean that you have does not make you 100% immune to the fact of what people say. You're going to make these people feel even more degraded than they need to, even less happier than the happiness that they could have achieved by this plastic surgery. We think that is very harmful. What have we told you from proposition side today? Two main things, right? First of all, that plastic surgery, yes, it may have coercion in it, and yes, it may not be your own choice, but that doesn't matter, right? What matters is the fact that it makes you happy, that it empowers you, that it makes you a better person, and we think that to that extent, it should be supported and not regretted, right? But furthermore, we have shown you today how what they are doing today is actually taking these people and using them as a tool for society, for change, and that should not be legitimate. And lastly, we have shown you that the people who have had surgery and who are planning on going into surgery will be extremely harmed, and for these reasons, we're happy to stand on proposition side.
Thank you for your speech. Then the House welcomes second affirmative from the affirmative side, Yuki Oka, please.
Alright guys, let's get a few things straight. Let's look back at some of the things they conceded, and I'm going to tell you why those things are, bad for their case. They agree that beauty is being standardized right now. They concede that ugly people are being harmed right now. They concede that the concept of beauty is trying to be diversified right now. Those things are things that they concede. They also conceded that plastic surgery is only used, or mostly used, for conforming to the ideals, to try and change something that you do not like. When you see yourself in the mirror, when you notice something that you don't like about yourself, you turn to cosmetic surgery. That's what they conceded about cosmetic surgery in the first place, right? That's the setting they created for themselves. The question then becomes, why are they willing to support cosmetic surgery under those scenarios? Taking into regard all the concessions that they have. When you recognize the fact, when they concede the fact that these things happen and these things are bad in the first place, why are they still supporting cosmetic surgery and the normalization of cosmetic surgery, the normalization of people willing to take that chance to stop trying to learn to love yourself, but to change yourself into something different? We think that's something horrible, and what we stand for from our side of the house is not that everyone is not only that everyone is beautiful, but that no one is ugly. And that's the message that we support from our side of the house, that everyone is beautiful, maybe not in the same ways, but all in their unique, different ways that is only available for that person, and that's something that we support from our side of the house. We're against the idea of beauty being standardized, and if they also think that it's bad, the question then becomes which side best deals with that. We think our side is dealing with that in a much better way. We also think it's regrettable that the upside came up and completely ignored the setup that came from Kowa. We told you this is a value judgment debate. It's not a motion about whether we should ban cosmetic surgery. It's not a motion about whether we should legalize it. It's not whether that option is going to be good for that individual or bad for that individual. Because when you look back at Sayaka's speech, most of the material is, it's good for the individual. It's good for the people who are suffering. It's good for those people who want double eyelids, so on and so forth. Right, maybe, but we don't care because that's not the debate, right? The debate is whether the normalization of those choices is going to be beneficial for the collective of the society or not. Kowa was very clear, and we're very regrettable that they're not willing to engage us on the case that we set up. But moreover, let's look at the things that they told us, right? They first said, you feel unhappy when you look at yourself in the mirror. There are things that you will always feel unhappy about. The thing is, maybe, but why does that happen? And this is the important aspect, right? It happens because you're comparing yourself to the ideal, standardized idea of beauty. Because you think that that idea is something that you have to achieve, and yet you're not there when you look at yourself in the mirror. You think that's something that you need to change, and therefore you feel unhappy. And therefore, because you have that ability to change yourself through the easy choice, right? You stop appreciating yourself, but you rush into that context. And we told you why that's necessarily bad in the context of this debate for the collective. Because your choice, that individual's choice to change yourself, is also a choice that pressures other people who are unwilling to change themselves, who are trying to live strong, who are trying to appreciate themselves, and who are trying to live as themselves and be happy about themselves. But the moment these people give in to that pressure, and the moment they start taking up that option, then those people also become the oppressor of the other people within society. And therefore, on the view of the collective, we think that's something very, very problematic. And that's something, under this context of the case that we set up, that's why it's better to stop the normalization in itself. But moreover, they then said, you need to understand, you have both instances, both ways to change. You have lots of options for cosmetic surgeries. You can have one eyelid, double eyelid, so on and so forth, right? From our side, we know that. We accept that. We think it's the effects of market mechanism that you have different choices. But it's not about choice. It's not about the number of choices that exist. It's about how many people are taking up each and every choice. And from our side of the house, we're saying many people are taking up that one choice that leads them onto that ideal beauty, and not necessarily taking the choice that best benefits them, or best, the one that best they want, right? Moreover, we think that their argument about how even if it's for a bad reason, it's still a valid choice, right? We don't really care about this because it's not, again, in the context of this debate. We're talking about normalization and acceptance and whether it's good for the collective or not, and not necessarily about whether that choice by that individual is good for the individual or not. That's completely irrelevant in this debate. But moreover, they then say there are cases when you have norms happening in society, how norms are pushing people into taking this choice, and how they're bad. Again, I clarified this earlier, but to be absolutely clear again, they're the ones that perpetuate that norm existing in society. They're the ones unwilling to try and get that change happening within the norm that they agree that is bad. We're the side that's trying to change the norm in itself. And the only way you go about changing the norm that says you can change beauty is to say you don't have to change beauty. That the acceptance of the idea that you can change beauty in itself is ridiculous, and that's the idea that we stand behind on our side of the house. Because the moment you say beauty can be changed, and by changing beauty you can become a better person, a better life, a better quality in all those aspects, that's you also saying, well, you need to do this in order to get all of that. You can't achieve that betterment by staying as you are. And that's something we regret from our side of the house, right? We also agree that people may not necessarily be the best tools in order to achieve change. But then again, this isn't necessarily a ban legalized debate. It's about the collective and about the outcomes of the collective and which is best for society, and therefore we don't necessarily see that as being too much of a big point. Then they said it becomes problematic about hesitation, right? Number one, people who take cosmetic surgery regret it as well. Not everyone who take these surgeries come out of it, very happy. But you also need to understand that there is a massive number of people who regret taking that choice. But moreover, they say it's bad that people hesitate taking cosmetic surgery. Like, I just cannot get my head around this. Why is it bad if you hesitate trying to change yourself? If you hesitate trying to change yourself because you think you can live a good life as you are, because you think you're still good enough, because you think you're beautiful, why is it bad to hesitate and rush on to change? We don't think that's something problematic. Sayaka's final argument about discrimination happens to those who's already taken it was without any logic whatsoever, so we don't think that's something important. What we also need to clarify is the concept of beauty that we want, the society that we want. The reason why the Bruno Mars song is really good in society is because it goes, when I see your face, there's nothing that I would change because you're amazing, just the way you are, right? I think it becomes problematic when it is, when I see your face, there are 5 things that I would like to change, here is the money, go and get it changed, right? That then becomes a really bad problem, and that's the kind of society that they're perpetuating. Because they're saying there is a standard idea of beauty, you need to conform to it, otherwise it's your problem, and it's your fault for not conforming to it. Our side, we're saying, you don't need to change, you're good as you are. What we're trying to do is make sure society values that beauty as well. The only way you go about valuing that beauty that individuals have indefinitely, because people are different to start with, is if you try and tackle the root cause of it, which is the idea of beauty, the concept of beauty itself. Therefore, at the end of the day, it's very clear. We're the ones that's trying to tackle the fundamental concept of beauty itself. Fair enough, it may take time. Fair enough, it may be 30 years. But we think that for humanity, that's much better than having a concept of beauty which you push upon people and say, well, it's going to be better for you, but only in the next 5 years, or only for that individual. I think that it's not about the collective. Their case is only about the individual, and therefore, under the paradigm, under the umbrella of the case that Kowa brought to you, we're definitely taking this debate.
Thank you for your speech. Then the House welcomed second negative Thomas Mallon to extend the case on negative side.
So their version of reality is, if we wait long enough and we don't have cosmetic surgery, someday no one will be ugly. What? you honestly think people are going to walk around and be like, I see no difference in the attractiveness of any human being compared to any other human being? I just don't. I just don't see it. That is not the real world. That does not happen, and that is not coming. Diverse standards of beauty does not mean everyone is equally beautiful. It just means different kinds of features may be considered beautiful in different circumstances. The fact is that people are going to be ugly, and people are going to be beautiful. And the question is, when you are ugly, should you be constrained to that, forced to live as that, or should you have the choice to change that about yourself? That's the question. The question is not, will there someday be a universe in which there is no beauty at all, or which there is no ugliness? That's not something that's appropriate to speculate about. And I'm frankly just shocked that this is even like a premise for a case. So let's go into that, and let's take about these points one by one. As they said, beauty is getting more diverse. It's got more diverse in the presence of cosmetic surgery. Cosmetic surgery has been around for several decades. Beauty is getting more diverse. They seem to both be compatible. Moreover, if beauty is getting more diverse, that means we can have more diverse cosmetic surgeries. That means there's no standardized cosmetic surgery. They keep saying, they support a standardized cosmetic surgery. No, we don't. We never said that. We don't even know what that means. It has nothing to do with our case. So just don't repeat the same lie over and over again in 2 speeches. Secondly, we say, they talked, well, this is the values debate, so it's not about whether we ban something. No, it's not about whether we ban something. But To the extent that a choice is good and valid, society should not put a taboo on it. To the extent that a choice makes you happier and feel more free and feel more fulfilled, society should not say, well, you're bad for doing that and you should feel bad about yourself. So when a choice is a good thing for you, when a choice helps you fulfill your vision of who you should be, we don't think that society should make you feel bad about that, and we don't think society should put a taboo on that. And that's what we're saying in our case today. And then they said, well, this is really bad because if you do it, it pressures other people to do it. Why is that the individual's responsibility? Why is it my responsibility to care about what my actions make other people think is good? Maybe people see me debating and they think that I should debate too, and then they waste their lives debating. That's not my responsibility. I'm free to debate if I want to, and if it makes people want to do it, that's their terrible choice. Anyways, they never told us why it's the individual's responsibility to care about that effect and to not do something for themselves because it might make someone else want to do it as well. And then they talked about our hesitation point. They say, well, some people regret this, so why shouldn't you hesitate? That's not what we're saying. We're not saying you shouldn't hesitate. We're saying society doesn't have a right to make you hesitate. Society doesn't have a right to force you to hesitate. Society can't put a picture of your unborn fetus in front of your face because they want you to hesitate. If you hesitate on your own, that's fine, but society can't make that choice for you, and society can't force that hesitation upon you. Now, what I want to bring you today is why allowing cosmetic surgery and making cosmetic surgery more prevalent actually will make appearance matter less. It will actually make appearance less of a fundamental factor. How does this work? When appearance is changeable, you can understand that it's arbitrary. When appearance can be switched up, you understand that it's not fundamental to that person. It's not that they were ugly or they were beautiful down to their core. It's that they looked ugly or they look beautiful, but it's not fundamental to who they are as a person. It's not fundamental to what they are as a being. It's something external to them. It's something conditional to them. But it's not something that says anything about what they are deep down inside. We say transgender surgery is the same thing for gender. It shows that gender is not fundamental. It shows that gender is not something that defines you as a being, but something that you happen to be born into, which you can change when it makes you unhappy. It says that being a man or being a woman has nothing to do with what you really are or who you really are. And if you don't feel like a man or you don't feel like a woman, you should be free to change that. Now, on their analysis, they might say, well, we would prefer a world in which no one knows the difference between men and women, and if you let people change their gender, then they'll think that there's a difference between men and women, and that's really bad. Or they'd say, well, if you let people change their gender, that'll incentivize other people to change their gender, because they'll think that that's a thing that they should do too, because you did it too. Once again, in that context, it's clear how irrelevant their argumentation is. If you feel that you would be more yourself, that you would have more freedom, feel more confident, feel happier if you change your gender, then you should be allowed to change your gender. It's not relevant what message that sends. In the same sense, if you're born ugly and that's making you miserable, and it's making you contemplate suicide, it's making you feel that you're worthless, and you know if you could just change it about yourself, all of that would go away. Then of course you should be free to do it. And because you should be free to do it, society should not make you feel bad about it. Society should not make you feel ashamed about it. In the same way, society should not make you feel ashamed about changing your gender. Society should not make you feel ashamed about those kind of choices because those choices are valid. And that's what we're bringing you on our side of the house. It has nothing to do with whether or not it should be banned. It's about the extent to which society can decide how you should feel about your choices, not to the extent to which society can allow or ban your choices. And so what we say is going to happen is we'll probably just have a diversity of kinds of cosmetic surgery like we see today. You know, a gyaru wants a different kind of cosmetic surgery than like a kawaii girl, I assume. They want very different things. And they'll both be happier if they get it. And it's not the same thing. It's not one standardized idea of beauty. It's an idea of beauty that lets your appearance manifest how you feel about yourself and how you feel you should be. It has nothing to do with conforming to a norm in those two disparate cases. In the same way in the United States, like some women want larger breasts, and some women want very small breasts. Some women feel sexier with smaller breasts than they feel with larger breasts. And that choice doesn't have anything to do with what they think the ideal is. It has to do with how they feel about themselves and how they want to feel and look. And so for them to say that there's only one kind of cosmetic surgery is patently false. Now, anything that becomes popular increases its prevalence. We accept that. When cosmetic surgery gets more popular, it's probable that more people will do it. But better medical tests result in more people encouraging you to take those medical tests because they're better. It doesn't necessarily mean that better medical tests is a bad thing. And we think that, on our side, as we said consistently, we don't think this is a weird choice. We don't think this is a strange choice or an invalid choice. And as Sayaka said, the reason why you want to do something is not relevant to whether or not that thing is good. If you want to do something because everyone else around you did it, but it would genuinely make you more happy, then that's a good thing for you to do. If you want to do something because you just came up with it on the spur of the moment, you've never seen it done before, but you know that it would make you happy, then that's also a good thing for you to do. If you give to charity because you want to feel good about yourself, we're as happy as giving to charity because you genuinely care about the poor. An act is not determined by the motivation, an act is determined by the act. And they can't show that this is bad or invalid, and for those reasons we don't think that they should make people feel ashamed. We're very proud to oppose.
Thank you for your speech. And the House welcomes the affirmative Tomoya Yonaga to provide title speaker's speech on the affirmative side.
What it's saying is like this. We still should have like hormone therapy because the society think you want, society makes you want to change your sexual preference. Society wants to shape your sexual preference. That's why those kind of way out, they should be there. Ladies and gentlemen, although opposition sides completely agreed the harm or the downside of the existence of the cosmetic surgery, but what they're trying to do is just giving the makeshift clinic and not tackling the fundamental cause of the chronic disease in the society. We oppose those kind of the dodgy reaction coming from the opposition because they recognize this is something bad, this is something we should not have because of the lots of the side effects of those makeshift remedy coming from the opposition side. And since we've already told you about non-clear response from the side of opposition is, this debate is not about the particular ban or the deprivation or the access towards the disease. And although Thomas wants to make it happen by using the argument of the social pressure, but I don't know how it's reasonably happen at the end of the day. So that's why, ladies and gentlemen, they haven't proved anything about why we should actively support the existence of the cosmetic surgery and the normalization of it. So to further examine the lots of the issues in debate, I'll provide you 3 crash points to examine. Firstly, I will examine the concept of the beauty and cosmetic surgery and what's the fundamental cause to make you feel something envy, make you feel something uncomfortable towards yourself, and how it's created by cosmetic surgery. And on the second class, I will examine the current social climate on plastic surgery or the counter value provided by the Prime Minister, and how actually I'm going to prove to you how the paradigm from the opposition side is just theories on paper. And thirdly, I'm going to compare the good or bad provided by both two sides according to the impact of uprising norm. So, and before that, independent rebuttal to the dialogue. So Thomas says, and we need this because anyways, and you're gonna be ashamed. Ladies and gentlemen, that what Thomas is talking about is a necessity of cosmetic surgery as a moratorium as a makeshift clinic. This is not what the debate is about because it's already clarified by Kowa and Yuki and none of the opposition speakers hasn't engaged. But we are talking about the collective impact of the existence called cosmetic surgery and whether it will create some good or bad on the collective manner. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, that we never say we're going to ban certain kind of option even if it has a kind of the, how I call it, the bad effect. what we are talking about is whether the current society is something regrettable or not. And since we've been consistent towards based on that argumentation, and the opposition side just try to stick like a ban on it and deprivation of choice or whatnot. That's why they're not standing even on their own stage. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, it's happy to have it as an option, but the burden of the opposition is to prove to us why do we have to welcome it in an active manner. In this sense, the opposition side hasn't proved why they can, hasn't proved this point in particular. And the second response to Tom's argument is about responsibility. Like, you're fucking free from anything, like you can take whatever you want. Yeah, basically. But the thing is, your change makes others cry. So this is the really important thing, because we have to examine it on the holistic manner as an adjudication. Like, that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we need to see lots of the harm and lots of the benefit. Of course, it has both two characteristics, and compare which is more huge compared to the other. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, the opposition's attempt is nothing but hollow, because they just stick to the bright side, not even try to see the dim side of it. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, opposition's partial reality never justify the holistic decision made by the government side. So, clashes on the concept of the beauty and cosmetic surgery. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to recognize the fact that all arguments coming from the opposition side, like you have to see something you don't want to see every day, or you want to change your appearance, like a gender, or the dichotomy structure between beauty and not beauty. It's stemming from the privileged structure with one single spectrum, and it's nurtured by the culture of the cosmetic surgery, which is already proven by Kowa, no response from the opposition side. And thin leg, big boobs, or the double eyelid, or tall nose, those kind of the culture has been fixed and perpetuated because of the particular practice to alter your facial or the body appearance, which is called cosmetic surgery. More than that, you feel ashamed or you feel envy, and there will be the motivation to change. But my partner Yuki already clarified, those kind of motivation is stimulated by comparing others, or comparing the ideal, so-called, and those kind of ideal is produced and reproduced time and time again by the perpetuation of the culture of the cosmetic surgery. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, we think that cosmetic surgery is particularly heinous for the issue of the concept of beauty, because it's fixing the certain ideal and not letting the counter value to go in. Especially the beauty is about the social concept rather than the individual instinct. Those kind of the societal acceptance towards a certain conception of the beauty is particularly important issue throughout the debate, and we proved to you how it's toxic. Opposition didn't. So, second issue about the current social climate or the plastic surgery. And which is, this class is very important, because we are not talking about the stuff on table. We are debating about the stuff in the reality. And the opposition side, like leader of the opposition and Yuki leader of opposition, is dodgy response to the reality of cosmetic surgery is here. Since beauty is diverse, or since beauty can be diverse, the option of the double eyelid and single eyelid will be the one which will be available for you. I wish cosmetic surgery was such a good thing and tolerant thing to the people. The reality, which is already clarified by the Kowa and Yuki, which hasn't been responded by the opposition side, is completely different from those so-called the textbook logic. Because you see how actually Brazil or the Korea has been fixing the beauty standards, and that's why the Kowa used the example of the Clone Wars. And more than that, ladies and gentlemen, those kind of appearanceism has been prevailing in those soils, and that's why there will be the many coercion to make you change the facial appearance, unless otherwise you'll be regarded as some ignorant guys or the really careless guys. And those kind of the how I call it. The simple defining structure is actually and particularly created by the perpetuation of the culture of the cosmetic surgery. And if you want to prove like a beauty or the diversity will be appeared, and you need to prove to me what will be the catalyst to change how the cosmetic surgeries are. Unless you do that, I can't buy your point. And as for, and in terms of the social movement, like a counter-body issues provided by Kowa, and it's been successful, and you don't have to wait so long time. Look at the case of the Calvin Kleins or the American Eagles and large-sized product lines, and more than that, and the TED Talk or the ugliest girl, and has a huge blast throughout the society. And Yuki talked about the issue of the Bruno Mars and that's the way you are, or the James Blunt and the You're Beautiful or not. So those kind of the diversity has been is going to be prevailing throughout the society, and which is empirically proven. That's why you don't have to wait that much, unlike not as Thomas explained to you. Lastly, the issue of comparison. Ladies and gentlemen, the all benefit coming from their side of the house is self-actualization. But ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to take cosmetic surgery because it's just a collective hallucination which is proven by the proposition side. You have to believe in this manner because the society defines the beauty. Unless society defines the beauty, you don't have to suffer in that manner. That's really simple logic. But compared to that, opposition told you how those kind of prevalence of the beauty standard will create a single undertaking process of evaluation under the label of appearance, which is already exemplified by the Kowa and Yuki, no response unfortunately. Ladies and gentlemen, we told you the beauty or the standard of the beauty is a hallucination, and this is the way to break down those myths by saying no.
Thank you for your speech. Then the House will can decide negative Mitsushi Ono.
I think many of you have been confused because they're trying to confuse the debate, but we refuse to be confused. Their argumentations, analyses are about why standardized beauty is bad. No disagreement. Concede. Standardized beauty is bad. But what they have to prove is why social acceptance to cosmetic surgery perpetuates the standardized beauty. They don't really understand. There are diverse cosmetic surgeries, even in Japan. Taka's clinic provides different cosmetic surgery from Nakano beauty clinics. Cosmetic surgery will never provide standardized plan for individual customers because they have commercial incentive to cater to different market shares, different market demands. If people embrace diverse beauty, there are diverse cosmetic surgery because people diversely change their faces, people diversely change their hair. What's the problem? Nothing is coercive here because people can freely take and choose the surgery without external influence by other people. If people literally believe in the same standardized beauty, then their argumentation stands. But as long as there are different kinds of cosmetic surgery stores, different kinds of medical institutions that is providing different sorts of plans for individual customers, then the existence of cosmetic surgery never perpetuate the standardized beauty. Thereby, the concession that the first speaker made already healed themselves. We are happy because we have nothing to say further. Because I understand that they don't really understand the cosmetic surgery because they say all Korean people look same. No. There are nuanced difference between what kind of size of eyes they have, what size of boobs they have, what length of hair they have. There are nuanced difference even between Korean K-pop stars, right? Because according to their characterization, people embrace diversity, right? Customers also embrace diversity. Customers choose different sorts of cosmetic surgery in order to choose the best appearance. Thereby, standardized beauty is never ever imposed upon anyone in our society. There is no necessity, no problem whatsoever. The debate ends here. My speech is over. Don't you think so? If there are diverse beauty, then why do people cater to standardized beauty by paying money for that? It doesn't make any sense to me. If I'm the audience, if I'm the judge, I just leave the room. But even if their case is to some extent true, there are some coercive narrative or normative standard. Question is, they will not deal with the coercive narrative either on their side of the house because they will never ever disappear the norm on their side of the house, right? But the distinction between this side of the house and their side of the house is at least on our side of the house, those who overcome your facial complex will not be subject to discrimination in society if society accepts these people. That's the difference, right? We are talking about social acceptance, not the ban. On our side of the house, these people are not discriminated or criticized or even denounced. Thereby, we need to embrace the social trend to accept these things, right? That's the distinction between this side and their side of the house. But more than that, second of all, even if it is to some extent coercive, that's not a reason for society to judge the legitimacy of the choice. So many things in society can be standardized, of course, sometimes, like studying in university, working in corporations, having cell phone, having girlfriend, boyfriend, getting married, right? But like, just because some people do that, it doesn't automatically mean that other people have to follow those trends. It doesn't automatically mean that society has a right to judge the validity of these choices, right? There's no causal link between some extent of course the influences than some individual taking up choices. Thereby, because there is no justification to put a taboo on these choices, society should welcome and accept these choices. That's a simple response to the meta debating shown by Oka, right? I know that this debate is not about ban, right? That's why we have been talking about the validity of choices the society should embrace. We are relevant to the debate still. Well, that's the end. The Oka said, my best friend said, in front of the mirror, you compare yourself to something else. That's why you feel stressed. Thereby, society shouldn't welcome this. You can never tell. You never tell what is compared to what. You can never tell the intent and the motivation behind the choices. No one tells that, right? No one knows why the particular person actually undergoes cosmetic surgery. No one tells that, right? Thereby, we shouldn't judge the validity of a choice based on the intent, based on the motivation. What's the problem with me changing my hair because I'm influenced by AAA, who that belongs to ABEX, right? No one tells the intent and motivation behind my choice. Therefore, their standards are just false. People change their faces because they are pressurized. No, that may be true, but that may not be true. Therefore, you cannot make a generalization that all people are actually coerced or they follow exactly the same trend. Another things. Well, the reason why this debate is not about ban and not about deprivation, but social acceptance, and we oppose is society has no right to denounce or criticize these people because the normative standards based on appearances was created by somewhere in the past. But these people who undergo cosmetic surgeries are victims of these social norms because they didn't create that normative standard in the past, right? They are not responsible for the existence of this oppressive normative standard. Thereby, society has no right to punish or penalize these individuals. They are actually punishing wrong actors in order to generate a social change, right? That's why society should welcome that. Society has no right, thereby society should welcome the decisions or judgment by these individuals who are victims of oppressive normative standard with appearances. Right, that's the response from this side of the house. Do you remember the grand final of Titec when Koki had literally nothing to say? I'm facing exactly the same situation now. Again, let me repeat why they have lost the debate, right? Okay. We understand the standardized beauty is bad, but we don't understand why the existence of cosmetic surgery or social acceptance towards cosmetic surgery perpetuates or aggravates, exacerbates the standardized beauty, right? There's no causal link here. Because there are different kinds of cosmetic surgery providing different kinds of beauty. Actually, as Thomas said, existence of cosmetic surgery is beneficial because it can challenge the conventional standard of beauty. Because there are some kinds of beauty, like gal, like those who deliberately make their skin brown. This kind of challenging norm of beauty can only be provided with the existence of social acceptance towards different kinds of cosmetic surgery. Therefore, if you really think that appearances is bad, we need to challenge those appearances with welcoming the diverse existence of cosmetic surgery rather than abandoning these choices and putting taboo on these individuals. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen. I love you.
Thank you, Mitsushi. So the House welcomes the reply speaker from the negative side.
I think
Mitsushi just delivered the best speech. I'm going to look at this debate through three lenses: the nature of beauty, the nature of this choice, and society versus the individual. And I'm going to show why their conclusions don't follow logically from their premises, and why none of their responses have been sufficient compared to what we've brought you today. So Kowa's entire case was premised on the idea of standardization of beauty is bad. However, in the same breath, he said, and beauty is getting more diverse. We've had cosmetic surgery for decades. If beauty is getting more diverse, then clearly cosmetic surgery does not stop that process. Rather, as myself, Sayaka, and Mitsushi all argued, that just means we can have a greater diversity of cosmetic surgeries, which perpetuates the trend, and which seems like a good thing. None of their harms then happen, and most of their case is dead. But more importantly, on the nature of this choice, they said, well, especially coming from the whip speaker, well, it's just coercive, so it's bad, and everyone has to get it now, and that's really bad, and everyone's going to get cosmetic surgery. Well, why is that bad? If it's not a standardized idea of beauty, why is it bad that everyone gets cosmetic surgery? We didn't hear that analysis from them. If it's a legitimate choice, and everyone gets it, well, that's fine. They all chose to get it. We didn't hear why that's a really bad or that's a really pernicious thing. But we told you, moreover, because we go deeper on all of these issues, we told you, moreover, that the reason why you make a choice is not a relevant criteria for evaluating the choice itself. The reason why you do drugs is not relevant to the choice to do drugs. The reason why you give to charity is not relevant to whether or not giving to charity is a good thing. Likewise, the reason for why you take cosmetic surgery is not relevant to whether or not that is good for you. And their response to this, we don't care because it's a policy debate. They just didn't engage in this analysis at all. They completely dismissed it and didn't even try to address this issue. They just said, well, you're debating about bans, or this isn't relevant to the debate. And we don't think that's sufficient coming from them. And in this context, we don't know why it's bad that people alter their appearance. Their argument is premised on the idea of standardized beauty, but that's just gone. So, therefore, on this idea of choice, most of their argumentation is lost from the debate. And then we talked about the society versus the individual, and we told you that society shouldn't be allowed to shame people for a choice that's good for them. Society shouldn't make people feel bad about a choice for the individual that makes their life better. And the response to this, we don't have to justify why the individual can be sacrificed because this is a value debate. Once again, didn't address the issue at all. Just said, this is a value debate, your point doesn't matter. Coming from the deputy speaker. Once again, not sufficient in this kind of debate. Because we told you in in-depth analysis, we asked, why can society make an individual feel bad about their choices if that choice is valid? We said, society should not do this and can't do this because the individuals are responsible for the norm, and the individuals are victims of the norm. And to that extent, you should be free to escape from that if you want. It's not your responsibility to fix the norm because you didn't create it. It's not your responsibility to care about what happens to the norm after you leave it because you're not responsible for its presence. And once again, to this, absolutely no response at all. All we got was another statement of, we don't care. That's not sufficient. You have to address the argumentation. So on all of these issues, we've given you deeper analysis. We've given you more consistent analysis. We've picked apart their logic and picked apart their reasoning and told you why it doesn't follow through. And the only response they've been able to give us was, well, more people will do it, and isn't that bad? If it's not a bad thing, then it's not bad that more people do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your speech. Then the House welcomes the final speaker from the affirmative side.
The motion is about regretting the normalization of cosmetic surgery in our society. the logical burdens that can be induced from this is basically, for the society, is cosmetic surgery a good thing or a bad thing? In determining whether said cosmetic surgery is a good thing or a bad thing, we need to look at what cosmetic surgery is and how people use it. And here's where the opposition starts to get really, really wobbly, right? Because they say, oh, people use cosmetic surgery to pursue their own diverse forms of beauty, according to Mitsushi. And then Tom says, no, people use cosmetic surgery to escape and opt into maybe 3 forms of the dominant norms of beauty, and that's why cosmetic surgery is important. You can't just straddle the debate and nitpick about how people would choose diverse forms of beauty when it suits you for cosmetic surgery in one instance, and then say, no, we use it to escape from conformity because individuals are the victims of predominant social norms, and therefore you use it to opt into these social norms. You can't just straddle and nitpick the debate, ladies and gentlemen. You can't just say people use cosmetic surgery for a variety of reasons, right? We think on our side of the house that we agree with Tom. That's what we told you from the very beginning, right? People use cosmetic surgery to opt into certain forms of, like, there might be maybe 3 or 4 dominant forms of beauty that exist in our society. And we've been questioning from the very beginning, is that a healthy choice? Right? That was the debate that happened. That was something that Mitsushi and everybody else was running away from when they say it's about the individual and it's a policy debate. No, right? Tom says people use it to escape and opt in. Mitsushi says no, beauty is diverse. If beauty is diverse and we take Mitsushi's premise, then why are people using cosmetic surgery in the first place, ladies and gentlemen? No explanation on their side of the house. Now, let's look at this idea about individual choice, right? Well, we say, firstly, it never was about the individual choice. We never prohibited it, we never justified it, we never condemned it. It's all about the consequences of that choice being good or bad for society. And they say, no, we should never use them as social battering rams because they are normative, because this norm of beauty that they are opting into, it's not their fault. One, they accept that beauty has norms now under their policy because it's a battering ram when you're trying to break the norm. By saying that, you accept that there is a norm that people are trying to conform towards. We think that that's damaging to their idea that says beauty is diverse. Number 2, yes, you shouldn't use them for battering rams if we can help it, but at the end of the day, if we don't use them as battering rams, they admit that standardized beauty is bad, and they're getting people to conform more and more and strengthen and entrench that norm. So they've never done anything to tackle the idea of standardized beauty on their side of the house. They've accepted it's bad, they have accepted that it has pernicious consequences, that it disenfranchises people, and yet they say, oh no, but they're victims, so we should let the norm continue and perpetuate. What kind of a standardized, what kind of debate is that, ladies and gentlemen? That's very disappointing on their side of the house. Then they said, look, people, like Tom says, it's not to diversify, it's to escape and pursue other forms of beauty. And we say on our side of the house, what is the other forms of beauty that they're talking about? We said from Yuki, you compare to Hollywood actresses, you are influenced by your standardized and predominant standardized forms of beauty when you opt in to go into cosmetic surgery, right? You don't pursue a diverse one, you don't grow a 3rd eyelid or something, right? You go and try and get that eyes, you try and get those bigger, you try and get them more attractive. And that's how you escape from that cosmetic surgery on their side of the house. Ladies and gentlemen, basically, why this debate is so confusing is not because we've scribbled the motion. It's because they conceded to everything that we wanted to say. They conceded that a standardized version of beauty exists. They conceded that a standardized version of beauty is pernicious. They conceded that the majority of the population use cosmetic surgery to change in the direction of that norm, to try and entrench that norm. And therefore, cosmetic surgery is good under their case, right? So they've conceded to all these things that we think are problems, and yet they try and defend cosmetic surgery based on that premise. We think that that's why it's really, really bad. We would prefer a world where beauty is not standardized, where people don't use cosmetic surgery to conform to standards of beauty. We would rather beauty not be changed, we would rather characteristics not be changed. And that's why we don't think cosmetic surgery should exist in our society. We're very proud of this.
Thank you for your speech, and our speeches are over, so please give them a big hand. I think our educators have to go to 101 different